Hello students. So today we will discuss another topic of this chapter, weather, climate and adaptations of animals to climate. Since we are continuing with this chapter, so today we will discuss about another topics. So let's see what we are going to learn today. Today we will be learning about climate and adaptations. Okay, that means how the adaptation it is related to the climate, but before that we have to know what is adaptation. Next we will be discussing about adaptations in the polar region. That means we will be discussing about the characteristic feature of polar bear and penguin, especially these two animals who lives in the polar region of the earth. Okay, and third we will discuss about migration. So let's start. Now, as we all know about climate, what is a climate? Now climate has a great effect on all the living organisms. Now living organisms, it includes both animals as well as plant. Now a living organism can survive in a particular habitat only if its body is suited to the climate of that habitat. Now animals and plants develop special features in their body or develop certain habits to survive in their habitats. Okay, so what is adaptation? As you can see in the slide, the definition is given: the presence of specific body features which enable an animal or a plant to live in a particular habitat or surroundings is called what? Adaptations, right? Now the body features and the habits that help the animals and plants to adapt to their particular habitats or surroundings are the result of the process of evolution. In higher class we will read in details about evolution. Okay. Now animals and plants, they are adapted to survive in climates in which they live. Now adaptation, this is a feature that helps a body of animal to survive in their environment by enabling them to withstand the climate, such as you can say extreme cold or hot climate. Okay, then to obtain food, to hide or keep safe or catch prey or to breathe, etc. Okay, for example, one example I am telling you in short now. Polar bear. Okay, polar bear, they have got, later we will discuss about polar bear. Just for now, for the sake of convenience, I am giving you the example. Polar bears, they have got 2 layers of fur and a thick layer of fat under their skin. Why? Because both of these body features of the polar bears are the adaptation that makes them withstand or tolerate the extremely cold climate of the polar region. Okay, now we will study about the adaptation of some animals to the climate in which they live in. Okay, now as for example of adaptation of animals to the climatic condition, we will discuss only the animals living in the 2 types of habitat we will discuss in this chapter basically. What are that? Number 1 is the polar region and number 2 is what? Number 2 is the tropical rainforest. Okay, now polar regions, what are the polar regions? The areas which are situated near the poles of the earth are known as polar regions. Now polar regions, they can be classified into 2 regions, that is North Pole and South Pole. Okay, now some of the well known countries that comes under the polar regions, what are that? We will discuss in later afterwards. Okay, now before that let me tell you what is tropical rainforest. Now tropical rainforest, they are the thick forest which grows both the sides of the equator of earth, where the climate is very hot and humid and rainfall is high. Why? Because as we all know that equator, it receives the maximum amount of heat from the sun. Now since it is receiving the maximum amount of heat from the sun, so therefore over there the water cycle will be quite natural, isn't it? So over there it receives what? Very hot, humid, as well as they receives a good amount of precipitation. Now since they receive a hot, humid type of climate, so a thick natural vegetation, okay, it grows over there. So you can see in the tropical rainforest a variety of what? Variety of flora as well as the fauna. Right, now what are the countries that comes under the tropical rainforest? That also we will discuss later on. Okay, now next we are moving on to the polar regions. Now polar regions, these polar regions of the earth, they have got extremely cold climate. That is the main feature of this region. Okay, now what are the well known countries that comes under the polar region? As I said that I will discuss. The well known countries that comes under the polar region are Canada, okay, then Denmark, then Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Alaska of USA, okay, and Siberian region of Russia. Okay, all these countries actually belong to the North Polar region, which is also known as Arctic region. Okay, and the South Polar region of the Earth is called what? Antarctic region, or just the Antarctica, right? Now, the polar regions, they are covered with ice and snow and extremely cold for most part of the year. Okay, for example, like for 6 months the sun does not set at the poles, while for the next 6 months the sun does not rise above the horizon. Okay, now during winter in polar regions, the temperature, it can be as low as minus 37 degrees Celsius. So just imagine how cold it is, right? The animals living in the polar regions, they have got far thick skin, layer of fat, that we will discuss one by one. Okay, now mainly we will discuss about the two types of animal of the polar region, that is number 1 polar bear and number 2 is penguin. Now let's discuss about the adaptations in polar bear. As you can see over here in the slide, the picture, this is a picture of a polar bear, white color polar bear. Now what are the adaptation? Now this polar bear, it is a large white bear which lives in the north polar regions of the earth, right? The polar bear, it feeds mainly on the fish and seal. What is seal? Seal is a kind of aquatic mammal. Okay, now what are their adaptations? Here you see. Now the number 1 is the polar bear, it has white color which matches with its surroundings. Now what happens? Due to this white color, the polar bear is not visible easily in the snowy white background, and hence its prey is unable to see it. Okay, so therefore this type of adaptation, that is of white color, it helps the polar bear to catch its prey. Also, the white color of the polar bear protects it from its predator. Predator means those who kill and eat it, because it mixes well with the snowy white surroundings, due to which the predators cannot see it easily. Okay, number 2, they has got thick layers of fur in their body. Okay, now what is the function of this fur? This fur, it protects the polar bear from extremely cold by preventing the loss of heat from its body. Thus, the 2 thick layers of fur keep the polar bear warm in extremely cold climate by keeping the body heat in. Okay, now number 3 is what? The polar bear, it has got a thick layer of fat under its skin. What happens? This thick layer of fat, it insulates the body of polar bear against the heat loss and keeps it warm in cold climate. Okay, number 4 is what? Number 4 is the polar bear has a rounded body with small ears. Okay, to keep the body surface area to a minimum, okay, compared to the body weight. Now what happens? This reduces the heat loss from the body of polar bear. Next point is, polar bear, they are a good swimmer. Okay, they have got a big feet, okay, which helps the polar bear to swim well. Now being a fast swimmer, it helps the polar bear to catch its prey in water very easily. Now while swimming under the water, the polar bear, they can close its nostril and remain under the water for long duration. And last but not the least, this is a characteristic of almost all the animals of animal kingdom. Okay, polar bear, it has also this characteristic, that is, they have got a very strong sense of smell. Now this very strong sense of smell, it helps the polar bear in locating and catching its prey for food. So this is all about your adaptations in polar bear. Now next we will discuss about adaptations in penguin. Now penguin is an animal which lives in extremely cold south polar region of the earth, that means in Antarctic region. Okay, now penguin, it is a sea bird which cannot fly. Penguins, they hunt for fish which they eat as food. Okay, and penguins, they live in the extremely cold climate of the polar region. Now what are the adaptation for penguin? Penguin, it is black and white in color, okay, but still it merges well with the white background of ice and snow. Number 2 is penguin has thick layer of skin and thick layer of fat below its skin, which protects them from extremely cold, unlike the polar bear. Next, number 3, penguins always they live together in large numbers. Why do they live together in large numbers? Because they huddle together to keep themselves warm. Okay, in crowded places, what you will find? You will find that the temperature suddenly it becomes hot, isn't it? So that's why what happens, the penguin, they lives in cluster, okay, in order to keep themselves warm. Next is penguin, they has got a streamlined body. Now what is a streamlined body? I think you have read in class 6 about streamlined body. Streamlined body means boat shaped body. Boat shaped body means wider in the middle and narrower in the ends, okay. So they have got a streamlined body, flipper like wings, and webbed feet. What is webbed feet? Webbed feet means jointed feet, okay. That means between the two toes there is a thin layer of skin, okay. And this webbed feet, streamlined body, it makes them a very good swimmer, and being a good swimmer, it helps them, that is penguin, to catch its prey, okay. Next, so this is a picture showing the penguin. Always you will find that they are living in close association of each other, okay. Now these are the other animals found in the polar region, generally musk oxen, okay, reindeers, then Arctic foxes, seals, whales, and many other kinds of fish and birds are found in the polar regions, right. Now next we will discuss about another specific characteristics of the animal, that is migration, okay. Now what is migration? As you can see in the slide, the definition: migration of a bird or other animals is an adaptation to escape the harsh and cold condition of their normal habitat in winter so as to survive. Now I'll make this thing more clearer to you. Now what happens? The bird, they must remain warm to survive. Now what happens when the winter sets in the cold regions of the earth, the climate, it becomes extremely cold. That means in the polar region, okay, as I said you that sometimes it falls below minus 37 degrees Celsius, right. Now the birds which normally live in this region, they migrate, that means they fly off to far warmer places to escape the extremely cold winter climate and survive. And when the winter season is over, these birds fly back to their original habitat in the cold regions, okay. Now the bird which migrate from very cold regions to the warmer region in winter and go back after the winter is over are called what? Are called migratory birds, okay. Now India is one of the destinations of many of the migratory birds coming from the very cold regions of earth. Why? Because India, it in the country of India, the tropical climate prevails, okay. Now what is the most common migratory bird which comes to India in every year for few months? That is Siberian crane. I hope all of you have seen Siberian crane. I'll show you the picture of Siberian crane after some time, okay. Now the normal habitat of Siberian crane is Siberia, okay. Siberia, it is a very cold place. That means it comes under the polar regions. Now when the winter sets in Siberia, it gets extremely cold, okay, and the Siberian crane, it flies thousands of kilometers and comes to warmer places in India, such as you can say in Bharatpur in Rajasthan, then Sultanpur in Haryana, okay, and in some wetlands of northeast and some other parts of India. Now the Siberian crane, they stay in warmer places in India for few months, okay. The Siberian cranes, they fly back to Siberia when the winter ends and the climate becomes favorable, right. Now some other migratory birds travel as much as 15,000 kilometers to escape the extremely cold climatic conditions at home to reach the warmer places where there is a plenty of food, right. The migratory birds usually fly high up in the sky where the wind flow is helpful and low temperature aids in dispersing the heat generated by the constant working of their flight muscles in flapping the wind. Now one question you can ask, that how do migratory birds travel to the same place year after year? This question can come to your mind. Now the exact answer to this question, it is still not available, but there are some probable reasons for how the migratory birds travel to the same place in every year. What are the reasons it can be? It seems, number one, it seems that the migratory birds have built-in sense of direction which tells them in which direction they will fly and reach the same place, okay. Number two possibility is some migratory birds probably use landmarks to guide them to reach the same place. Number 3 possibility is many migratory birds may be guided by the position of sun during the day and by the position of stars at night to reach the same place. Okay, and number 4, there is also some evidence that migratory birds may be using the magnetic field of earth to find the direction so as to reach the same place every year. Okay, so it is not only these birds which migrate, even some mammals and many types of fish and insects such as butterflies are also known to migrate seasonally in search of favorable climatic condition. Okay, for example, if I say reindeer, okay, reindeer, it is a type of mammal which migrates. It lives in the cold northern regions of North America, that means in Alaska, where they feed on grass and shrubs in the summer. Now what happens during winter, when the snowfall occurs, all the grass and shrubs, they get buried in snow, and reindeers, they do not get any food. Now what happens due to this, the reindeers, they migrate to the warmer regions in the south where they get sufficient food, right? They return to the original habitat in the north after a few months when the snow starts melting. So this is all about your migration. Here you can see this is a Siberian crane. This is left side, it is showing the Siberian crane, and the right side it is showing you the process of migration. That means they are flying towards their destination. So this is all about today's lesson. In our next class we will discuss about the adaptation in tropical rainforest. We will discuss a little bit of tropical rainforest, and we will discuss about adaptation of two main animals of tropical rainforest. So thank you everyone.